Bismillah. So can we roll?
Yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم I will be speaking on the COVID-19 lockdown, the science of it, economics of it, and the benefits. So, and the outline for my talk today, we have three different perspectives. The first perspective will be the global perspective. Then we're going to look at our continental perspective, and finally our national perspective. So, and in doing all this, I'll be starting with the science of it because we need to understand where we are coming from, to know where we are and where we need to go. Let me say it clearly here that COVID-19 lockdown has a cause. And it's only when you understand the cause that you can actually proceed to the effects. I'll proceed by telling us a bit about the science of it, which is not a theory, but in practice, what we've been able to understand over the years around viruses and the way they behave. And in this case, we're going to narrow it down to COVID-19, which is just a manifestation of a particular mutant of coronavirus, which ordinarily is living with human being in peace. And you will recollect that the first law of motion was very clear to say that a particle or a body will continue to be in normal state of inertia until when it is acted upon by an external force. This time around, we are talking about a net force that will activate the particular virus in its normal habitation or in its normal habitat, so to say. Let me start by talking about the pathogen we are talking about today, which is the coronavirus. So, in essence, we have nothing less than 7 classes of viruses. And the classification was actually made based on the nucleic acid that they contain. So, the nucleic acid basically are of 2 forms. It's either you have the RNA or you have the DNA. For you to understand the science of COVID, you actually need to operate at a very molecular level and go into the genome. Otherwise, we are going to be making a lot of mistakes. And that is why what we have today is essentially a lot of information that contains little or no knowledge. And we are having a calamity in this country because we have a twinning of indiscipline and the ignorance. So when you have the two together, they give you what we call calamity in the social space anyway. So, and those that have limited knowledge, essentially, they become so stubborn. And when you have stubbornness again with indiscipline, you are going to have a disaster. So more or less, a lot of things are going on in the space, media space, that instead of giving knowledge, they're actually confusing a lot of people. So today we live in a world of confusion, particularly in this part of the world where what we think is education is just schooling. People have gone to school, they pick a little of what they want to pick there, and they have little education. Considering a lot of population that are not even educated, they don't even have opportunity of going to school. So what becomes of them in this? So that's why we might need to go a bit the way of science to allow different people to understand what we are talking about. We have the elites in mind, and we have those people that are not elites. So we're going to be moving between the top science, the medium science, and the low science. And at the end of the day, we expect everybody will understand what we are trying to do. So, like I mentioned, viruses are of 7 classes, and depending on the nucleic acid, that is what is going to tell you the type of virus. That is for the microbiologists. So the nucleic acid we're talking about now, they are the genetic code that is carrying the information of what that virus is expected to do at any point in time. So for each of the virus, the minimum that you have with a virus, let me remind us that from our basic biology, we know viruses are not living things anyway. They are just a particle. So when you move forward and you see that for that particle, it must have a protein coat. That protein coat is what we call a capsid. So a protein coat with a nucleic acid does not make it functional. That is why many a time they are in their inertias. And being in their inertia means they can actually be in a state of non-activation for a long period of time. 99% of coronavirus species that we have are actually living in mammals, including human beings. They are there, they are not just being activated. They are living their own life. This particular coronavirus we are talking about now is a mutant of a typical coronavirus, and from the genomic analysis that we have seen, 99.8% of similarity in terms of homology is similar to those ones that are not even virulent. So the one that is virulent today, it has become a mutant. A mutation has occurred. And what type of mutation occurred? The capsid that we are talking about becomes spiked. So that is why it's like a corona. If you see the structure under the electron microscope, you are going to see something like a cap, like a crown. That is why they are calling it corona. That particular spike now is the one that has taken the virus from its inactivity mode to an activation mode. And because it is having that now, then that particular crown we are talking about now, that is the protein spike that you have, is what is being expressed. Now, it takes two to tango. Even if it is being expressed in its natural environment and there's no receptor, then there is an issue. So what we have noticed now is that in the epithelial cells that is lining the respiratory tract of human beings, where this virus, some of them have been living, we have seen that there is a receptor cell that can actually allow the binding of that virus to the system. And the moment that binding occurs, it's like the host is ready to release a particular protein, and the new host is ready to accept it. Then there's going to be a combination. In essence, what we are saying here is that when there is that spike, that is the mutation that has occurred, the next thing you see is that we have a concept that I need to explain now that we call the tissue tropism. Tissue tropism is telling you that there is a tissue that is ready to accept and ready to bind with that particular activated virus. So in this case, when there is that activation and there is a tissue tropism, what we are going to see is that there is going to be a marriage. And something is coming to see where it's going to bind on, another one is ready to accept, then there's going to be a latch. So in essence, from the nasal cavity, at the back of the nasal cavity, throughout the respiratory tract to the lungs, that is where you have the acceptor cells that are lining in human beings. That is why that is the area that is being affected. Mind you, this particular virus, the mutant type, can be transmitted through all the orifices that Almighty God has given you, including the eyes, the nose, the mouth, anywhere that can have entry into your body system, including vagina in human beings, in the females. So we need to understand that, and that's why we need to be very, very careful. Let me move on by telling us that when this one happens, the next thing is that, okay, we have it in the system. What happens? At the molecular level again, we've seen that the particular nucleic acid this virus is carrying is RNA. So it becomes easier for it to actually colonize some of our cells and cause what we call transcription. It's going to produce a transcript of itself, and it's going to be multiplying. And at the point of doing that, there's going to be a lot of protein expression. That is going to be leading to what we call the translation. Translation and transcription is not the same thing in the genomic study, but for the sake of my audience, I might not need to go deep to talk about the cycle of what happened. In essence, after colonization, it leads to a lot of multiplication. And that is why over a period of time, all the normal cells that have been behaving, they become those cells, and they are now misbehaving. What causes the problem? You can see that what I've just explained It's supposed to be a symbiotic relationship, whereby some things are going on. But your body normal system, your immune system, will immediately be activated to say what is going on here. This is a foreign body coming. And when that one happens, that is why you see a lot of problem. And you can see that the manifestation of the immune response in your body system, that is what is giving you a lot of disease. You can see again that when the immune system is being mobilized to fight a particular virus, then it means the defense system is coming down, because there are other things that is being put under stability. Maybe people that have some ailments already, and that immune system is being mobilized at different sites. Now that they have a bigger work to do, all of them will leave where they are, and they are going to move like a security guard to that particular site. And it means a lot of things that they were doing before now becomes failing. And that is why you see when they say people have a compromised immunity or is having a disease before, and the immune system is supposed to be the one managing those issues, then they are now mobilized to manage a bigger issue, while this other system is failing. Before you know it, it can lead to death. Again, let's say that our immune system naturally should be able to get rid of this particular virus without any complications. That is why you see some people, they say they are asymptomatic. They are not even showing any symptom because their immune system is well mobilized. It has only one fight, it's fighting that time, not multiple fights. People that are having underlying diseases, their immune system have multiple fights, and they're already thinning out. Now another one comes. So that is the layman way of explaining these things, so that people will know that if you are suffering from diabetes, a lot of issues that require your immune system to be active every time. And now COVID is coming, or the coronavirus is coming, let me put it that way. Then it is a possibility that some of those defense systems will be compromised because they want to come and fight this bigger challenge, which is newer anyway to the system. So in doing all of this, the manifestation is very clear based on this explanation. You can see some people that their nasal cavity is going to become blocked. Why? Because there is going to be oversecretion of phlegm and mucus. And then now, because it's being actively multiplied per seconds per minute, so it's going to block all what you call the respiratory system. And it can cause the swelling of that area. So if any human being cannot breathe again, what happens? So that is death. So essentially, that is how it is being manifested. So you're going to see a lot of people talking about different solutions to this problem. I'm going to use garlic. I'm going to use a lot of this, a lot of that. Well, what I can say around that is that, yes, we cannot be talking about problem without a solution. But the solution lies in what makes your system or is compatible with your system. That is why people are talking about chloroquine. Some people are talking about Cuban interferon. Some people are talking about their garlic. Some are talking about azithromycin. A lot of them have been mentioned. So what we need to realize is that we don't have the same genome. We don't have the same genetic reaction. That is why many of these drugs cannot give you 100%. But if you know what works for you, what is essential is that this virus should be removed from your body system. So what makes that one to be removed are things that you need to work on. For example, you know, it's a flu-like reaction. Some of us know what works for us when we have flu. In as much as, yes, it might not be 100%, but it might not lead to the blockage of the reproductive tract. So if it is garlic that assists you to do that, you might be on garlic and it's going to assist you to make sure that at least you are relieved and you can live your normal life. Remember, it is only 2 weeks that the life cycle of this particular virus in the human system can last. So it will have completed its life cycle within the system. It's either it's getting out, it's staying with you. That is why you see some people, if they have gotten it out, that is the maximum period. I'll give you an instance here. I don't want to mention the name of the professor in Nigeria. He got infected, and I must confess to you, within 8 days, he's a professor of medicine. He was clear about 5th day. He was speaking to another professor who I engaged with, and he told the professor that, let me tell you, if it's more than this virus, I will flush it out of my system. Confidently, he was saying that. By 8th day, he was tested negative. And it was clear to say I'd use a combination of a whole lot of things because this is not the first time I'll be fighting viral infection. I know what works for me. I'm not having any symptom. They said it's in my system. I will assure you come back in 8 days, I'll be tested negative. And it's clear, it's done. And it's not only him, more than 3 people like that. These are proven solutions that are never documented that we have in countries like Nigeria. Remember again, I don't want to be talking about the problem because we need to start allaying our fear. Let's be talking about the solution. When you look at the trajectory in terms of the statistics across the world, there is an hypothesis again that Africa, maybe we have some peculiarities at genomic level that is making us to be a little different from the other part of the world. I wouldn't say it's no, and I also don't say it's yes, until when we carry out a research to authenticate this particular claim. But there might be, because that's why I call it an hypothesis, because, you know, even chloroquine is effective against it. Some of us cannot count the doses of chloroquine we have taken from birth till now, until when they tell us that stop chloroquine, be taking artemisinin and some other things. So if that has been part of our system, and it has caused a lot of genetic modification in terms of our gene expression and protein expression at genome level, unknowingly to us. Now that this particular one is coming, we might have some level of defensive system who says no. Because if chloroquine is being indicative, I don't want anybody, particularly in this part of the world, that doesn't have some doses, residual doses of quinine in his system, either as chloroquine, either from bitter leaf, either from bitter cola, many things that we are taking. And I must say, too, that many of the whites, they have never taken anything that as bitter as that in their life. So we are not saying the same thing. Again, the environmental factor. There is no way you want to talk about the genomics of any disease. We are not looking at the genetics and environmental twinning. Again, that is G to X. For every condition, pick expression you are seeing anywhere that is that manifests as a disease. Because what you see as a disease, you're supposed to isolate. You don't go and infect the community. It's a sin. It's not only that it's not morally right. It's a sin. So that is the truth, because if you multiply it now, the resources of the goes into that, and a lot of things will be missing. Okay? So it is expected that people are isolated. The question I will ask now is that how many isolation centers do we have in this country for this kind of epidemic or endemic disease or a pandemic? So before now, nobody is talking about isolation centers because we have never seen it. We have been reading it in books. But how many isolation centers do we have? So I want to suggest at this point that ordinarily, for the kind of population we have in this country, if you have 37,000 isolation beds or facility across the country, it's not going to be a bad idea. So meaning that at least a minimum of 1,000 isolation facility per state. Then quarantine. Again, people make jest of this word. Yesterday I was just listening and somebody said they were asking him in Lagos. I'm talking about level of ignorance now. On the street of Lagos, a guy that is the director, we actually spoke 3 days ago on the effort that they are actually doing. And what they are doing currently, the sequence was to provide a template or a platform or an information for us to develop whatever we call it, either therapeutics, vaccines, or diagnostic kits. So for today, the turnaround period for tests we do in this country per sample is around 3 to 4 hours. So per sample. So for us to test, even say half of our population around, how many years will it take us? So, and in that, the only facility that we have in the country that can do that and has been done across the world is using the PCR. That is polymerase chain reaction equipment. So in this country, there are a number of them. As at the last count, I learned we have about 50. But I must confess to you that we have less than 10 of them that is being put to use now. Despite our challenge, many of this equipment has been kept under lock and key because some individual believes it is my property. Because the university system are being closed up and nobody is talking to them to say, where are these machines that we can set up to continue this testing. Test kit they are looking at. And in this case, it's going to be the one that will be using the swab, the biopsies, not the blood. And if they come up with that, the maximum they can go to is, to get to is to actually design and develop the guide RNAs. So, and which is essentially the core part of it. The scaling up and the mass production is going to be done with their partners in Boston, Massachusetts, in the US. And these are things that we're supposed to have capacity for. Again, economics of it. We need to know that clearly we are losing money and we are bound to lose money. That is why I want to start from the science perspective, so that when we move forward, you're going to see the interlink. And what I missed when I was explaining to you, there's what we call the human angiotensin converting enzyme, ACE2. That is the gene that is a receptor for the virus in human being. And that is the gene that is present in the epithelial lining of the respiratory tract. Again, any human being, any mama that has this can have this disease, meaning that from embryonic level of human being to adult level, all of us has this particular gene. So, particularly, it can be anybody, either baby or anybody have this disease. So, where have I left? I left on the issue of therapeutics. So, this particular enzyme I just mentioned now, for you to stop the progression of this particular disease, the therapeutics that we need to develop, the drug, must be able to control the secretion of that enzyme. The moment is, and they are being released by Lagos State government or wherever, we're supposed to be taking their blood sample for us to take the serum or plasma that is going to contain the antibodies that we can now use for vaccine development. So it is that serum that you need to introduce to almost everybody that has never had it. And their system will be able to now understand, whenever you see this thing, this is what to do. It's simple like that. So, but as of today, this is a traditional way of doing vaccine. There is an amplified way of doing it now. We can merge the two technology, the first generation technology and our understanding of the biology of vaccine to accelerate the production of vaccine for this particular thing. So in essence, when you see anything that is virulence or a virus, talking about, they could have different types again. So what you see and what you have recovered from somebody that's have infection in Nigeria might not be exactly the same thing you are going to have in Italy or some other. So that is why it is very good for us if we can do our local production of vaccine locally. So we need to look at that and see, and for the antibodies to be conserved, if you are even taking this sample,